Delighted to be joined now by former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards. A very good morning, a belated Happy Easter to you.
And to you, good morning.
Thank you
and
very
happy
much.
Easter.
Well, thanks for joining us. Now, I just want to ask you, first of all, just about Keir Starmer welcoming, he says, and being really pleased with the Supreme Court ruling last week. It took him 6 days. I mean, he was away on holiday. You know me. I'm a big fan of the holiday. He was away on holiday with his family, but certainly not on the day or the day after that result came out and the Supreme Court ruling that women were women and men were men, and men who think they're women can't use women's single-sex facilities. It was very, very clear. And he's been back since, I think, Sunday. He's now finally been asked in public, and he says he welcomes the decision of the Supreme Court. It's given us clarity, much needed clarity. Do you think he does welcome that decision?
Well, first of all, I think we can forgive him for not instantly going to Twitter or whatever it might be to, share his views over Easter.
The result was out on Wednesday morning.
He was obviously respecting the holiday. And,
No. The result was out on Wednesday morning.
And then I think we have to say what he says at face value too, which is that he welcomes the clarity the Supreme Court has given us. And I think any sensible person would be in the same place. It just the court has spoken, they've deliberated upon it, they said what they've said, and now we need to move forward.
Should we take also at face value things he said in the last 3 years about it's not actually true to say that only women have a cervix, as one of his former MPs has said, and that. Very, 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 very questionable statements about the percentage of women who have a penis. 99.9% of us don't, apparently. So should we take that at face value too?
Well, he's a lawyer and he's looked at the Supreme Court judgment, and that's what will inform government policy and his.
Well, except that was always the law. But it was always the law, wasn't it? People like Keir Starmer who gave us the lack of clarity in the first place.
No, I disagree with that. I mean, the court case was brought by people who did want to dispute it, but the Supreme Court has spoken loud and clear and unanimously what the situation is. And that, as ministers on the media rounds this morning have been making absolutely clear, is what will inform the Labour government going forward.
But is it completely good? What about the likes of, there's a WhatsApp group that was LGBT plus or whatever, how many letters we're adding on, and after that group within government, Chris Bryant, a prominent gay Labour minister, Angela Eagle, again another prominent gay Labour minister, both agreeing that this was, they weren't happy about the ruling. How would they, organise against it? And even saying that the chair of the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, in saying that, men can't become women and men can't use women's single-sex spaces, was appalling. So are you sure the government really accepts this?
I am totally sure of that. And I think, well, a couple of things. One is just shows the idiocy of writing these things down on WhatsApp groups. People think WhatsApp is secret.
It's okay if they think it and we don't know about it.
I just don't think that people should be putting this stuff out there, because if you write it in WhatsApp, you may as well stick it in the Daily Mail. We all know that. But second of all, the government is of one mind on this, because the Supreme Court obviously.
Well, they're not. No, but they're obviously not, because the issue isn't that we found out about it. The issue is that they think it.
Well, they would say that they've been taken out of context, and I think
they could say that, but it's not true, because we've seen the messages in full.
I just think that the Supreme Court gave us absolute clarity. The Prime Minister has made it clear. You've seen cabinet ministers this morning echoing that view, and that's the view that will inform government policy. Full stop.
Here's the thing: he's a lawyer. The law was already clear. We already knew it, and yet he's been part of a government and a Labour Party. Tories were just as bad. Kemi Badenoch, new Tory leader, to be fair, she was solid on this all the time, even when got a lot of grief for it. But the Labour Party, for years, has been pushing this agenda, saying that trans women are women, and that men who think they're women or dress up as women can use women-only safe spaces, including toilets, changing rooms. By the way, Labour members, Labour elected politicians in Scotland voting for the likes of Isla Bryson, a double rapist, to be allowed to be in a women's prison because he put on a wig and claimed he was trans. Now, I'm sorry, although we could see his todger through his leggings, so I'm not quite sure it was a very convincing little costume. I'm sorry, but how could anybody trust Labour on this issue?
Well, I think the reason is because Keir Starmer's made it absolutely clear that the Supreme Court judgment is the one that will inform government policy.
Okay, so
and that's the end of that,
today kids went back to school. People are going into work in hospitals and in local councils and in many public bodies, many of which are paying money to the organisation Stonewall. Used to be a fantastic gay rights organisation and charity. Now it's basically a misogynistic anti-women trans rights organisation. That body has been paid millions of pounds in total by public bodies paid for by taxpayers to give what has been completely incorrect legal advice to bodies about whether or not they have to provide single-sex spaces and the like. Should the government stop giving taxpayers money to this organisation?
Well, I think Stonewall itself has to look very closely at the judgment and question its own policies. I mean, I was a great supporter of Stonewall back in the 80s when we were fighting Clause 28, and it was a legitimate organisation. I do fear it's lost its way a bit since then.
So should the government stop giving my money to them?
Well, I think there needs to be, they need to look to themselves, first of all.
Answer the question.
And then I think that if they carry on, there is a question then about whether public money goes to them or not. I think that's a reasonable question to ask in the light of the Supreme Court judgment last week. OK,
let's also talk about league tables. Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, is announcing today that officials must publish the first detailed breakdown of offences committed by foreign criminals living in the UK while awaiting deportation. And we'll know basically the nationalities of the migrants with the highest rates of crime. Albanians, Romanians and Poles are expected to be among the worst offenders for crimes, including violence, robbery, theft and drug dealing. Now, previously, Home Office officials said it was too difficult to provide this sort of quality data, but she now said by the end of the year she wants to see that data. Now, I can't believe that's something Yvette Cooper's been keen on doing, but there's been a lot of public pressure for this information to come out. Do you think it's a good thing we should know these details?
Well, hang on. I think it's the exact opposite of that. I think she's very keen to get this information out there. She's come up against the blob telling her she can't. And as a strong minister, she said, well, actually, the public need to know, which is why these numbers will be in the public domain. And you should welcome that because you've been calling that for months.
I think all government data, all public data should be made public. But I mean, I just can't believe it's something that Yvette Cooper feels very strongly about personally, given Yvette Cooper doesn't really believe in borders, judging from my previous interviews with her.
Disagree completely. I think she wants the information out there and she's demanded it from her officials, and whatever the resistance, she's overcome it because she is a tough minister, and that's what we want. You know, ministers getting a grip and actually doing things that the public want is what this government should be all about. So, you know, this is actually good news.
OK, it's good now.
What's clarity over the figures, and we'll be able to see what the true picture is, and not speculation, but actually see the numbers.
OK, and once we see the true picture, what happens next? Because the point of often the figures, like, for instance, we have league tables of schools or hospital trusts, is so that you can give information to the public and they make judgments about, you know, which school to send their child to or which hospital to have their operation in and the like. What would be the purpose of us knowing which particular groups of nationalities are responsible for the most crime in this country?
Well, I think A, it will help dismiss any mythology and, you know, people getting blamed if they're not actually to blame, and B, it will help us inform what the police do in terms of cracking down in gangs or whatever else. But, you know, as ever, we should have the policy based on the evidence. So getting the evidence out there of who is doing what and what the numbers tell us will then help shape the public policy response, and that's, you know, the best kind of policy, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it won't be, of course, it won't be everybody who's a foreign national in the country, will it? Because it's only those awaiting deportation, which will be a very small number from people in this country. But we've certainly seen some stats that have been compiled, this country and others, which do suggest there are certain nationalities from certain parts of the world who have a much, much higher crime rate than other nationalities. Should we think about, well, much tougher policies in terms of immigration for people coming from countries where there has been a demonstrated higher rate of criminality?
Well, I think the answer is actually if it proves that there are certain nationalities involved in gangs, let's say, who are coming here to be part of criminal gangs, and that will help the police and the other authorities crack down on that particular form of criminality. But it's not because they are from that country, it's because they're being brought here to be part of gangs and organised crime, and that will help the police do their job. So, you know, getting the evidence out there is a really good idea. That's a good news story today, along with breakfast clubs. That's the other good news story that I'm sure we're going to come to.
Yep.
But it will help the police do their jobs better. So who's going to disagree with that?
I mean, it'd be nice if the police did do their job better and arrest people who commit actual crimes, than rather than hurty words on Twitter. Perhaps people holding up placards calling for the death of women activists might be a good start. Let's talk about the breakfast clubs. Why on earth do we need to provide breakfast to kids whose parents can perfectly easily afford to give them breakfast?
I think it's a brilliant policy, this, because it first of all buys time for parents, and we all know, some parents have a lovely idyllic start to their day with a cooked breakfast on the table for the children, but most of us,
who does that?
It's a bit chaotic. It's a bit of mayhem, a lot of shouting involved, and I've had that experience this morning myself. And I think the extra half hour and the extra money that we'll put in the pockets of parents, I think, will be enormously welcome.
No, you're not putting that money in the pockets of parents, because parents are also taxpayers.
It'll save them money and time, and time, is money, and we don't work 9 to 5 anymore, and the transport system doesn't work. So most people's mornings are chaotic and difficult.
Oh, they're not actually. Well, I think most parents function perfectly well. I would say if you've had a morning like that today, get up a bit earlier.
Well, that's what I've been saying to my children as well. However, I do think
Labour parenting, everybody, Labour parenting. Do you want me to come and sort that out for you? It doesn't happen in my house.
It's a good idea for people to get into school. And what teachers will tell you is, of course, it means it helps with discipline as well, because the kids are not going to be badly behaved or as badly behaved if they've got food in their tums.
But again, I'm not disputing that children should be in school on time and have breakfast. I'm disputing who gives them the breakfast and who pays for it. I don't see why I, as a taxpayer, should pay for someone else's kid to get breakfast when they can afford it themselves.
Like saying I shouldn't pay for the local park because I don't have a dog that I walk. That's a public good that people can share in or not, Paul. And so are well-disciplined kids who are learning in school.
Are there any jobs left for parents to do? Apparently, they don't have to teach their kids to clean their teeth. They don't have to feed them. They don't have to teach them. They don't have to teach them to sit upright or potty train them, because teachers are having to do some of that now.
These interventions are all helpful. Of course, we need to give parents the support, and it's a big mistake we got rid of the Sure Starts, by the way, because that's where a lot of parenting was.
That's where the middle-class parents went.
They were
largely used by middle-class parents. Those are the stats.
That's not fair.
It's not fair. It's a fact. It's not. I'm not.
And even if they are, I think the middle classes do need to buy into universal services like the National Health Service, like comprehensive schools. Otherwise, they'll opt out and pay their own way, and then you get fractured services. So good. If
maybe they still want their kids to go to school with kids whose parents can't be bothered to feed them breakfast.
I don't think it's a question of not being bothered. I think.
Oh, you think they can't afford it?
No, I think it's to do with time and the pressure of work. Both parents working, often have to leave the home before the kids have to, so the kids are often left on their own. And you will help parents, in a difficult cost of living crisis.
You don't leave your kid if your kid can't listen, Paul. If your kid can't pour a bowl of cereal for themselves or put a piece of bread in the toaster, that kid can't legally be left alone. So that's a load of nonsense.
All the evidence is that breakfast clubs are successful. Now, this is a pilot scheme being rolled out this morning. It's 750 schools in all kinds of different schools all over the country. Right. Let's see if it works.
We'll see if it works. Let's just spend some more taxpayers' money. Paul Richards, I appreciate your time.